That's a lie.
What did you say?
My dad wasn't a drunk.
Just like the entire Hogwarts population when Umbridge was in charge, the cast of Harry Potter was subject to many strict rules while they were under contract doing the films. Given that the Harry Potter actors list was mostly made up of child and teenage stars, it's such a wonder that all of them are able to abide by all these harsh rules, especially those that prohibited them from skiing or eating chocolates on set. So stick around today as we take a look at some of the super strict rules the Harry Potter cast must follow on set. But first, a simple reminder on how to enter our brand new giveaway. We are giving away either an iPhone X Max, the new iPad mini, or MacBook Pro. It's all your choice. So be sure to leave a like, comment the keyword, subscribe, and turn on notifications to enter the giveaway. It's really that simple. Number 1, no American actors. This is the first and harshest rule that J.K. Rowling laid down when she allowed her books to be made into films. It was very bad news for Robin Williams, though, since he always had been after the role of Hagrid, being a huge fan of the character in the books. To be fair, though, the ban was not specific to American actors, because all Rowling said was that she didn't want her British characters to be played by non-Brits. Unfortunately, there were no such restrictions on the casting of the movie Fantastic Beasts, which allowed Johnny Depp, a non-Brit, to land the role of Grindelwald. Unfortunately, there were outside forces that made Depp pull out from the next movie in the franchise, which is The Crimes of Grindelwald. But that's another story for another day. Number 2, no stealing of props. In Hollywood, it's actually pretty common for TV and film actors to swipe a prop or two for their own personal collection of souvenirs from projects they've worked in, and no one bats an eye. But for the cast of Harry Potter, pulling the same stunt can actually land them in the streets and out of a job. See, the sets and props used in the making of Harry Potter were almost exclusively designed and made to order just for the Potterverse, so you can imagine how nightmarish it would have been if they had to replace some of the props just because someone wanted a souvenir. The continuity of the scenes would have been compromised, and it would have been such a waste of time and resources, so nope, no one got to take home the pensieve. Number 3, no wigs, please. The moment the Harry Potter movies wrapped up production, Emma Watson cropped her hair really short because that was the first time she was allowed to call the shots on her own hairstyle. This is because of the rule that Harry Potter characters weren't allowed to wear wigs, so they had to really grow their hair out and dye it in a certain color if the character calls for it. This rule was exceptionally hard for Tom Felton and Emma Watson, whose characters had unique, unchanging hairstyles throughout the films. No wonder Tom wanted out of his blonde head and Emma her long, bushy do as soon as this rule was no longer applicable to them. Number 4, snack in your own time. This is more of an anecdote than an actual rule laid out in the contracts of the Harry Potter cast, but it's pretty strict. Apparently, Tom Felton, aka Draco Malfoy, loved to stow chocolate bars in his costume pockets, so he could snack whenever there's a shooting break. Problem was, he would sometimes forget about his chocolate bars, so the costume department would usually find melted chocolate oozing out of Tom's robes and pockets after a shooting day, which makes cleanup such a pain in the bum. As a consequence, they decided to sew the pockets shut so that no one can leave nasty snack leftovers in them. Leave it to a Slytherin to make things worse for everyone else, right? Number 5, absolutely no alcohol and illegal substances. This rule was very easy to comply with during the filming of the first couple of series because most of the actors were kids who couldn't get their hands on alcohol and other substances even if they tried, but it was super important around the time when our favorite Hogwarts students actually crossed the age of adulthood. In all fairness to Dan Radcliffe, who played Harry Potter, he claims he never showed up to work drunk despite struggling with alcoholism very early in his adult life. He knew the showrunners weren't messing around with this rule, and so there would have been dire consequences if he were to break it, so he did his best to indulge himself on days when they weren't shooting the Deathly Hallows. Number 6, no dangerous activities. Can you imagine spending your entire childhood without skiing, riding a bike, or waterboarding? Well, that's exactly the kind of sacrifice that our favorite HP actors did in order to comply with their contracts. In an interview with the Daily Mail, Tom Felton revealed that the entire time they were shooting Harry Potter, the cast was banned from engaging in any extreme or dangerous activities. Why? Well, just imagine what would happen if some of them got badly hurt or injured while doing those extreme outdoor activities. The entire production schedule would be delayed and fans would have been mortified, to say the least. So, yep, the Harry Potter cast may have had a glamorous childhood, but they weren't able to rollerblade or just go crazy on a zipline for most of their formative years. Number 7, no dating your Hogwarts schoolmates. The Harry Potter showrunners knew they can't get in the way of real love, so this was more of a word of caution than a hard and fast rule. It was laid down simply because everyone knew a teenage dating would produce a lot of drama, which could get in the way of the work they were trying to do on those magical sets. They were all just trying to spare everyone the awkwardness, hence this rule/reminder. But then again, love conquers all. So there were a few HP stars who ended up dating, just like Bonnie Wright and Jamie Campbell Tower, who played Ginny Weasley and young Grindelwald. The two dated lengthily and were even engaged at one point before calling it quits in 2012. Number 8. No failing Muggle school. This is a rule that's beneficial to everyone, especially for the parents of the young cast who only want what's best for their kids. Even though life as an actor can be pretty demanding, the production team of Harry Potter wanted the cast to focus on their education, so it was written on their contracts that they could end up losing their jobs if they start failing Muggle school, or, you know, the schools they're actually attending when they're not pretending to learn magic in Hogwarts. But the production team didn't just pressure those kids to do well in school, they actually provided them ample support for their academic requirements. Apparently, they paid a lot of private tutors to stay on the set so they could teach the young actors their school lessons in between takes. Number 9. You can't leave the franchise. This is pretty standard with all contracts. Casts are not allowed to simply walk away in the middle of production. But to think that they got everyone to commit an entire decade of their lives to see the HP franchise until the very end is truly impressive. Here's the thing though, the studio couldn't really get them to sign a 10-year contract to keep them in the franchise, so they had to seal the deal for every film separately. This posed a problem for Emma Watson, who really wanted to attend university and also decide her looks and hairstyle for the best years of her school life. So by the time Goblet of Fire was about to film, she almost left the series. Of course, Warner Brothers could not let that happen, so they accommodated her requests. She got a lot of time off to attend her school requirements, and she was even given the freedom to change up Hermione's hair, and that is why we all saw Hermione mysteriously learn a magic trick that fixed her huge bushy hair in the 4th movie. I mean, she was supposed to be the smartest girl in her class, and yet she only learned this handy trick in her 4th year? Fishy, right? Apparently, those were the terms demanded by Emma so she could stay in the franchise. Number 10. No risque projects. Even though it attracted a lot of mature viewers, the Harry Potter movies still largely catered to kids, and so Warner Brothers was keen on keeping the image of their cast flawless. This meant no daring roles while they were doing HP. Because if parents around the world suddenly decide the HP actors are a bad influence, they might just ban their kids from watching the series altogether. This severely limited work opportunities for the actors, most especially for the main cast. As we all know, Dan Radcliffe totally failed to launch his career outside of the Harry Potter franchise because of this restriction. Number 11. Respect your elders. Kids can be rowdy and a tad disrespectful when they're having fun, so everyone was reminded to be respectful to the older members of the cast. Despite this rule, it's an open secret that the set of Harry Potter was an actual prank war zone, and not even the most respected of veteran actors were spared from the antics of their young co-workers. But then again, you've got to let kids be kids. Number 12. No bickering on set. The more important rule is to not bicker on set, or to not let any personal drama affect their work. This is a pretty sensible rule because naturally the cast forged real-life friendships because of how close they've all gotten while working together. So there's a huge probability that real-life tensions will translate to on-set awkwardness. So the producers had to remind everyone to remain professional and civil, no matter their personal relations outside production. Number 13. Absolutely no spoilers. J.K. Rowling used to be really hands-on when it comes to overseeing the production of Harry Potter, and she would sometimes sit with the cast members to tell them what's bound to happen to their characters in the future, though she has yet to write it out at that time. The risk was magnanimous. The cast members had to be periodically reminded that they could lose their roles in the series if they gave out spoilers to people who are not part of the show and ruin the films for everyone. Sounds about right. Anyway, that wraps up the video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.